Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our webinar. Just setting up the slide deck. I'm waiting for a few more to join. Right. So we are recording. So if any can't make it or are late arriving, then we will circulate the recording. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. We're really thrilled to have you here today for today's webinar with our partners SBTI, where we're going to explore why science-based targets are crucial for your association and members. If you're new to CAFA, I'll give you a quick introduction. We're a dedicated resource and network focused on sustainability and net zero, specifically for the membership sector. And our mission is simple, but powerful. One is to harness the collective power of membership organisations to accelerate transition to net zero. And two is to help decarbonise the membership sector. Now, we understand membership organisations play a huge role in shaping industries and your own sectors. And CAFA are here to support you, giving confidence, resources and practical solutions to drive real change and impact. Our goal is twofold. Firstly, to help associations to lead by example, ensuring that your own sustainability journey is strong. We call that getting your house in order. And that allows confidence and demonstrable leadership to fulfill our second goal, which is to support your members in taking action, creating a ripple effect across industries. Now, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Guillaume, who will share more about our partnership with SBTI and why science-based targets are really important. Then we'll hear from Maria at SBTI, who will dive into what these targets are, why they're important, and the process of setting them. We'll have a Q&A at the end, so do feel free to drop questions into the chat as we go along. And looking forward to a great discussion. Guillaume, over to you.
Thanks, Crispin. So nice to see you all. I'm Guillaume Lane. I'm Engagement and Impact Lead at Climate Action for Associations. And we're super proud at CAFA to be partnering with SBTI. So SBTI has a massive scientific expertise when it comes to how to set science-based targets. We're all working towards the same goal, Climate Action for Associations and SBTI, to align organizations globally to 1.5 degree global warming targets from the Paris Agreement. So since we have this same desired goal, this same objective, we're working together because we have complementary expertise. So SBTI comes in from the science-based target setting process side of things, and CAFA, we want to engage with membership organizations, specifically trade associations, in supporting their members with setting these science-based targets, because they're extremely important for businesses, as Maria will explain a bit later, because they're spearheading, they're at the front line of how to reduce emissions in a way that is aligned to climate science and realistic at the same time. So CAFA provides guidance and tools to trade associations to support their members as businesses, whether that's corporates, whether that's SMEs, in setting these targets. And we're, once again, super proud to be working together towards this. So I'll hand over to Maria to explain a bit more what these science-based targets are, the benefits, and how to set them.
Thank you, Guillaume. I'm just going to share my deck and I'll get started. Okay, I think that should be working. So I'm Maria Rojas. I'm the Europe Engagement Manager at the Science Based Targets Initiative. Really excited to be here with you all. And my intention, I think our shared intention, is really for you to leave this webinar understanding what are science-based targets so that you can share that with your members and share how science-based targets are a way forward to taking climate action that is credible, science-aligned, and well-regarded across sectors and globally. So I will start by introducing the Science-Based Targets Initiative, or SBTI for short, what we do and our progress to date. I'll also touch on the step-by-step process that a business would go through when setting their targets. And then we'll have some time for questions. So SBTI was founded 10 years ago when the world's government signed the Paris Agreement, which really looked to address catastrophic impacts of climate change. At that time, SBTI's founders, which are the founding partners you see here at the bottom, recognized the need for the private sector to play its part in combating the climate crisis. So the Paris Agreement, an incredible moment for countries to come together, but how do we make that into a tangible thing that businesses can take forward and, take their part, do their part in contributing? So we are now 10 years old. We are a UK charity registered in the UK, and we also have a wholly owned subsidiary, which is our SBTI Services Limited team, which manages all the validations. So how do we do this? How do we make this tangible for businesses? Well, we do this by defining and promoting best practices in setting near-term and net zero emissions reductions targets in line with climate science. We develop standards, tools, and guidance to enable companies and financial institutions to set those targets. We also have a rigorous process for developing those standards, which is publicly available on our website. I won't go into that detail today, but I want to say that these standards go through a very rigorous process that ensures that the content of each of the standards is driven by a transparent, multi-stakeholder approach, and that not one group or individual has sole decision-making or authority over its content. And I'll also flag that we have our carbon net zero standard version 2 for revision. Our flagship standard is up for revision at the moment. We have our first consultation period open for 75 days until June 1st. So really invite you, if you would like to participate and give your feedback, to visit our website, which I've linked to at the end of the presentation. So when we were founded in 2015, the goal was to get 100 businesses to commit to setting targets. And since then, we have surpassed 100 by a long shot. And we've really managed to have an impact and reach beyond our expectations. At the start of this year, we reached 10,000 companies with commitments and validated targets. And now already, a couple months in, we're at 10,800 plus companies, which is great, as well as 150 plus financial institutions with science-based targets. This is about 40% of the global market capitalization. So really excited with that progress. But of course, it takes every business, every company, every financial institution to take action. So we are hoping to see those numbers continue to grow. So what makes a science-based target? It's a little bit what it says on the tin. It's essentially a target is science-based when they commit a company to reducing their greenhouse gas emissions in line with what the latest climate science deems necessary to keep global heating below catastrophic levels. This is partly why we are always updating our standards, because we're always looking at the science and keeping in line with the science. So in short, a science-based target defines how much and how quickly a business must reduce its emissions to meet global climate goals. And companies have two options. They can set near term and they can set net zero targets through SBTI. So, looking at near-term targets focus on achieving reductions within 5 to 10 years from the date of submission to SBTI. The target boundary, so the percentage of emissions that a company must cover in their inventory, must be 95% of Scope 1 and 2 emissions and 67% of Scope 3 emissions if they account for more than 40% of a company's total inventory. And then looking at net zero targets, the main difference is that there's between the near term and the net zero targets is that there's a net zero long-term element. So companies must achieve net zero by 2050 at the latest, reducing their Scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions to zero or close to zero by 2050. And then at the latest, they could do it earlier, and neutralizing any residual emissions and any emissions released thereafter. And if a company sets a net zero target, they must also set near-term targets. So why set a science-based target? In many ways, it is the first step in taking real concrete action towards decarbonization. It's as simple as you need a goal to get and a bit of a map to know where you need to get. And our targets, again, tell you how much and how fast you need to decarbonize. So it's a real first step. It also demonstrates a company's commitment to reducing emissions within its value chain. So it's sending a really important signal to internal and external stakeholders. Internally, it can rally employees around a common goal. It can also be externally a really important indicator for investors and consumers who may be looking at a company's climate commitment and criteria for investment or doing business with them. Reducing greenhouse gas emissions can, of course, also help prevent economic losses related to supply chain disruptions and material damage and safeguard vital ecosystems that we rely on every day. Companies have also reported that SBTI validated targets boost their credibility and confidence with investors. It's one of the main reasons companies often set targets. And a survey that was done last year by Stanford University showed that nearly 60% of the world's top institutional investors consider sustainability critical in shaping their investment decisions. And I don't have a stat here on consumers, but it's, I believe, equally high from a consumer perspective. So looking at target setting, there are two routes to setting targets, a standard route for corporates and financial institutions, and an SME route that I'll talk a little bit about in more detail, that is streamlined. So the process for setting a target is split into 6 key steps. The first step is to register. We have a new validation portal that we introduced at the end of last year, and companies, I recommend that everyone register, to be honest, because then you can really access all of our content and material and start to see what options there are and what tools we have. So it's a great first step to take. Then you can commit in step 2. So you can basically commit and say that you're going to set science-based targets. In that third step, you would then begin to develop your target. And there are a wide range of resources available to you from SBTI. And I know CAFA also has some great resources and can provide advice and support to help you footprint your emissions and start to create that inventory so that you can go to step 4 and submit your targets once they're ready. You would do this also through the validation portal and would then go through the process of getting those targets approved, working with our validations team. And then once those targets have gone through the submission process, if they're approved, a company would share that publicly, communicate with the external world, again, really important for sending that signal. And lastly, there's a commitment that has to, an agreement where a company would disclose annually. And this is not done through SBTI, but it can be done through reporting mechanisms like CDP or through a company's own sustainability disclosure annually. So I mentioned I would talk a little bit about the SME criteria. It essentially matches CSRD criteria. So a company that has less than 250 employees, has a turnover of less than 50 million, total assets less than 25 million, and is not part of a flag sector. But then we have some additional criteria here at the top around emissions. They must also not be a financial institution or in the oil and gas sectors. And again, must not have to set flag targets, for example, or any of our sectoral decarbonization approaches, which I'll share in the next slide. And lastly, if they are a subsidiary of a parent company, we recommend that the subsidiary set targets instead and include them in. So SMEs, being smaller, often lack the resources and capabilities needed to set Scope 3 targets in particular. Because of this, SMEs are not required to set near-term targets for their Scope 3 emissions. So when they're setting targets for near term, it's just the boundaries for Scope 1 and 2. And so they're direct emissions. But if they set a net zero target, then Scope 3 emissions would be required. There's a lower fee for SMEs to get validated, and they can also skip the first step and set their targets right away instead of going through the commitment, which larger companies can also do if they choose to. Okay, so I mentioned there's flag targets. The reason is we have targets that are, or sector specific pathways. So amongst the range of resources that we have to support companies through setting targets, we have created sector specific resources. So companies in all sectors, apart from fossil fuels, can set science-based targets using our cross-sector methods, our near-term and net zero methods, which I've shared earlier. Then we also have, for heavy emitting industries, sector-specific methodologies and frameworks and requirements that have been developed. So they are really looking at the carbon budget, the specifics of that sector. But if your sector is not listed here, again, the cross-sector pathway is encompassing for and can be used by any company. CAFA and SBTI are also collaborating on sector-specific resources that will be adapted for associations to help their members. So look forward to those. And I know I've shared a lot of information and it's a little bit the tip of the iceberg as well, but I want to take a moment to remember that our future depends on climate action. As the UN Secretary General Guterres said, we are at a moment of truth. Tomorrow is too late. Now is the time to mobilize. Now is the time to act. Now is the time to deliver and curb the effects of climate change to ensure a livable future and resilient economy. So to that end, we all have a responsibility and an opportunity to take climate action. And it's really important to bring your members along on that journey and join CAFA and SBTI to move forward. Thank you. I think I'm going to pass it back to Crispin now.
Thanks, Maria. That was a very thorough, although quick, run through of the SBTI process and importance. If anybody has any questions so far, please do post them in the chat. I think Guillaume can go through some more of the resources that that CAFA have on hand.
Yeah, of course. Just getting the slides on the screen. Yeah, so as Maria mentioned, it's our responsibility to take action now in terms of reducing emissions as many businesses, as many organizations as possible. As a reminder, we need to halve emissions by 2030. So we only have a few years to go if we want to meet our targets. So it's really, really important that we take action now. And because this topic, we're talking about climate science, we're talking about very technical topics, is sometimes hard to grasp for more the smaller businesses, especially more on the SME side, and also small associations. CAFA and SBTI, I really want to emphasize, are here to support with resources, with guidance, and if trade associations want to join CAFA so that we can support them in the whole journey, to be honest, the measurement of emissions, but also setting science-based targets with SBTI. That's something that we really, really want to do with you. Help you as much as possible, because we know that it's a massive challenge. So some of the things that we can do with you is some webinars and learning sessions. We do a lot of capacity building that can include templates to save you time, that can include resources to help you understand how your sector can decarbonize, for instance, as Maria has mentioned. We're collaborating on sector-specific resources, and we have SBTI jargon busters that can help you understand most of the language that you need. And also in the follow-up email that we'll send after this webinar, we'll attach a communication toolkit about SBTI. So this communication toolkit you'll be able to use to communicate directly to your members, whether they're corporates or SMEs. You'll be able to use the text that's in there about what is SBTI, what are science-based targets, what are the benefits, and why they're important for businesses, and how to set them. So we want to save you as much time as possible, so that will be included in the resources attached to the follow-up. So yeah, just I guess I'll conclude just by saying, re-emphasizing that we have the links on screen, and they'll be in the slides for setting science-based targets with SBTI, or joining CAFA if you want support in doing so, or in helping your members doing so.
Thanks.
Oh, and I'll just mention that we have this webinar is the first of the series, and we'll also mention the date of the next webinar in the follow-up.
Thanks, Guillaume. We've had a question in from Rosina. She says the vast majority of businesses in our sector are micro businesses. That's under 9 employees, 9 and under. What learning do you have from supporting micro businesses through the process? Maria, I wonder if you could address that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the SME pathway, as I mentioned, is a streamlined pathway, and it would apply here as well. We know that scope 3 is often the largest part of any business's inventory of emissions. And by removing the need to set a target for scope 3, it really, decreases the need, or the just how hard it would be to set a target. I think for any business, no matter the size, just having an inventory of your emissions is absolutely necessary. And from there, you can set a target and use our tools and resources, essentially a calculator where you would be inputting and getting to see how much and how fast you would need to reduce for those emissions. And then build from there, so that's a great first step. Setting your targets will give you that vision, and then continue to try to make steps in your scope 3 after that. And
Thanks,
I know
Maria.
CAFA has a great resource for inventory, so definitely look at that.
Yeah, we do. And I'll add, because we've got a lot of experience working with micro businesses, be them an association or a business. And actually, the availability of data is a lot easier in a small team than when you have huge departments that need to delve in and all the data's hidden. Remembering that the initial baselining calculation is, well, and ongoing calculations are all driven by data, business data. So it might seem a really difficult task to start, but actually with what we've outlined here today, with the support of SBTI and their team and CAFA, we do offer that capacity building, as Guillaume referred to earlier, upskilling, and actually the speed of transition can be a lot greater with a micro and a smaller organization than a large. so you get the results quicker. So main message from me is don't be put off if you're a small team. We are here to help as a partnership, and it is a very feasible challenge. A lot of it is demystifying. Thank you for your question, Christina. And we've actually just had a note in from my colleague, Kappa, that Kappa is working hand-holding many associations and their micro-business members. Our work with the Federation of Small Businesses also supports micro SMEs, and there's a link to our Kappa resources. So yeah, we're very well versed with small teams. Good. Unless there are any other questions, we will record this, as I said, and circulate it with the slide deck. And it is a series of webinars, this being the first, so look out for the next. And I thank you all for your time. Thanks, Maria.
Thank you all.
Thank you.